What's up, Rip City? Welcome to the postgame show for the Blazers against the Timberwolves for January 7th, 2021. Blazers ended up winning 135 to 117. And tonight was a pretty good game. Blazers played a pretty complete game other than the beginning of the first. Beginning to the middle of the first quarter, it was kind of ugly. But they really started picking it up towards the end of the first. And I must say, especially in the first quarter, there was a lot of times where they get caught on back cuts, and I noticed Dame said something about that in the post game, so I think that's something they're going to address. But you just got to keep themselves from getting caught watching instead of playing. And I think that's something that'll change, especially with Dame commenting on it at the end of the game. That means they're aware of it, and it's just going to change. Also, you don't want to get too high as Blazers fans. A win's a win, which is always good, but you got to remember they're playing the Timberwolves without Karl-Anthony Towns, who's by far their best player. D'Angelo Russell's very good, and you could tell by that in the first quarter when he was kind of cooking the Blazers, keeping them in it, but actually having them ahead for a while. But you just got to remember, you just got to take care of these, but you don't want to take these games as we're the best team in the league. We still have to prove it. You always got to have something to prove, no matter what. It just gives a good competitive drive. But you just got to take care of these games, and without going too high or too low, I think that the Blazers will do well this season. Now tonight was Dame time. Dame came out, and after the first quarter, just started hitting shots. He ended with 39 points, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, shooting 13 of 21, 7 of 12 from 3. And he also ended up with 3 steals and only 1 turnover, which is extensively good. And, I mean, he's obviously the eye test award winner today. He absolutely balled out, and he put to bed the Anthony Edwards versus Damian Lillard debate, which kind of wasn't happening, but Edwards wanted it to happen at the beginning of the year. If you watched kind of that messing around rookie versus vet beef, I mean, that was pretty funny. But, I mean, I'm not saying Anthony Edwards is a bad player, but Damian Lillard is on another level right now. I think him and Steph are the best two guards in the league right now. And I mean that over James Harden. That's my personal opinion. I think Damian Lillard is a more complete player compared to James Harden, even though James Harden has a absolutely insane shot. I just think Dame's better. I think Dame's peak is higher than Harden's peak. And I know that might cause some dislikes, but that's okay. That's just my opinion. You're free to have your opinion. But I think Curry and Dame are the 2 best in the league, and I believe Doncic, I don't really count him as a guard. I think he was more of a guard forward, similar to LeBron. But he's definitely up there. So, also wanted to say, Jusuf Nurkic, welcome back to form. He had 17 points, 2 assists, 7 rebounds, shooting 8 for 10 from 3. From field goal percentage, which was very good for him. He's had a couple off games recently, and I know last game he was doing pretty well, but it really had Dame and Nurk exploiting the drop coverage, especially in the second quarter, that the Timberwolves are running against the Blazers. And I really hope that gives the Terry Stotts and the coaching staff a wake-up call. That drops coverage does not work against good guards. They can get a head of steam coming down the lane, go one-on-one with the big. It doesn't end well a lot, but I was really, really happy to see that Dame was able to demolish some drop coverage, which I know frustrates a lot of Portland Trail Blazers fans. And also got to say shout out to Derrick Jones Jr., who might not have put up the most stats, but I think that he's going to be finding his shot a lot more. I know he had a really good drive from the far side three-pointer and came into the mid-range and shot a little Gary Trent Jr.-like shot. Really nice shot. Really good to see him working for his own shot instead of using him as a spot-up shooter or a dunker. I think that's going to really come in handy come postseason, if provided the Blazers make it. Now, I got to say, much better ball movement in the last 3 quarters compared to the first. The ball movement in the first quarter was a little bit suspect. It looked a lot like the end of the Bulls game. Really slow and a lot of dribbling for Dame, CJ, and Nurk, especially on one play. I don't think Derrick Jones Jr. or Robert Covington moved from the corners, which I'm not really a fan of. I know that Terry Stotts likes ISO and likes the pick and roll. However, I think that you have to get your whole offense involved, and because defense feeds off offense and offense feeds off defense, if you're able to get everyone in the game, which I think you saw towards the end of the second, third quarters, It'll really help out your team's overall flow. And I think basketball, it's a game of runs and it's a game of flow. And if you're not in a good rhythm, you're not going to be hitting shots. And obviously they were shooting shots tonight. This also shows that Dame's getting his deep three back. He hit a couple that are just insane. They look like they were from Bend or Sun River. If you guys have ever been there, it looks like they're from Sun River. Absolute bombs, and I'm really happy to see that. That brings a whole new dimension to the offense when they have to pull back the defense all the way to the half-court line to worry about Dame shooting, which can really cause a problem for the defense. Derrick Jones Jr. really improving, like I said earlier, but he's got to work on his fouls. He fouls a lot, and I know that he and Robert Covington like to get in there and swipe at the ball, and that's a valuable part of the offense, but he's a valuable part of the defense. So if he gets himself in foul trouble and gets taken out versus teams that aren't the Timberwolves, it's going to have an issue because Rodney Hood and Carmelo Anthony are both pretty good offensive players, but they're not the best defensive players, even though Rodney is improving immensely on the defensive end, in my opinion. It's really good to see Ed Davis and Jake Layman still playing pretty well in Minnesota. I know both of them were Blazers for a long time. I really enjoyed Ed Davis's tenacious rebounding when he was here, and he was really fun on 2K. And then Jake Layman, I think is kind of like Derek Jones Jr. before Derek Jones Jr. was Derek Jones Jr. So he's a great dunker. He's a good three-point shooter, pretty good defender. He's kind of that all-around pretty good player type player. He's a good backup there, and he does a good job with what he works with. And I'm happy to see him thriving in Minnesota. Also, it's really good to see the Rodney Hood, like I mentioned earlier, and Nasir Little back. Rodney Hood dealing with some injuries. He looked like he's back to 100%, and he's really becoming, I think he's going to become more of the Jazz Rodney Hood that he was originally shown as before he went to the Cavs. Really, really happy with that. Really aggressive and taking it to the rack. And he's also playing pretty good defense, which I know he's never been really known as a defensive player, but I think that he's going to get pretty good defensive looks as of late. And Nasir Little, I don't know if you guys know this story, but Nasir Little, he went, I think he was battling some COVID issues with around the time of the bubble. And then he had, or right after the bubble, and he ended up going back to Portland, and when they got back to practices, he got dehydrated, I believe, and collapsed at practice, which is a scary thing, and you really don't want that to happen to anybody. So the fact that he's back on the court, that's great. He's a great athletic player for the Blazers to have on their bench whenever they need him. And I'm just happy to see him back. And it's always a good sign in the Blazers games when the bench is in. It's either a really good sign or a really bad sign. And tonight it was a really good sign seeing all the players come out on there that normally play, CJ Ellaby and Blevins and Giles out there. I think Giles should get more minutes with the starters, but that's just my personal bias. I will say that the second and third string players really didn't hit on the first part. I noticed they shot about 11% in the beginning of the fourth quarter, but they got it better once it got down to I think it was a 16-point lead. And once they got it down to that, they started hitting shots, and Anthony started picking it up, and Gary Trent started hitting, and Giles hit a really nice three in the corner. So just overall a pretty good game. So what else am I missing? Enes Kanter played pretty well. I think he had 10 points, as well as just go Blazers. Good game, feels good. On to Sacramento. You got to take, with Sacramento, just got to give a little shout out here. I think that with Sacramento, what you really have to do is control their energy, because if you can control their transition offense and their energy, you can pretty much control Sacramento. You just run them off the three-point line. Buddy Hield can get hot. De'Aaron Fox is pretty fast, so you got to take care of their guards. They've got some pretty good guys. Corey Joseph and Holmes are balling out for them. But if you can take care of business against them, against their guards, you should be able to beat them. So let's hope they're able to do that. And I'll see you guys on after that game with another post-game show for you. All right, go Blazers. Peace out.